welcome. It's nice to have you here. Today is a Relax into Health, Wealth, and Happiness meeting, and so we'll be exploring what that really means. And the topic that we're going to explore specifically today is that you cannot lift yourself up by your own bootstraps. It's one of my phrases that I use, so you may have heard me use this before. And I'll be exploring this today, and it's a very important topic that can help you tremendously in your life. So the first thing is that in order for the knowledge to be of real value to you, you need to be able to receive it in the right way. And in order to receive it in the right way, you need to have the direct experience. So normally what happens is we're operating at a particular frequency of the thinking mind, the sense of an egoic sense of being somebody. And so we filter everything through that and limit what it is that we're actually able to receive. And so we want to be able to receive more directly what it is that's being communicated and expressed. And that happens through the direct experience. So I'd like to just guide you through a brief practice that will allow you to connect more directly to the content. So if it's comfortable for you, you can close the eyes. And if it's not comfortable, you needn't close the eyes. The reason to close the eyes is just because it allows some of the noise that we're accustomed to being focused on to be dampened down or reduced. And so it allows for more of a subtler focus. So again, if it's comfortable, close the eyes, and if it's not, you needn't. But it will probably be an easier experience if you can comfortably close the eyes. And just notice that you are breathing. Perhaps you're not breathing, but you can notice whatever breathing or not breathing is happening. And being aware of the breath is a very simple and yet a very powerful way to alter your frequency. So by being aware of the breath, which is this expression of life that is occurring that you're not doing, actually, literally does change your frequency. It changes the vibration at which you're functioning. And it allows you to open up and be more aware in this wider way. So our normal frequency is very focused. And this just gentle, simple attention, noticing the breath, allows for this wide open awareness. So you'll start to notice everything that's happening. It's just an automatic thing that happens if you just bring your attention to the breath. You're not thinking about the breath necessarily. You're not trying to breathe in a particular way. You're just being aware of the breath. And see how intimately aware of the breath you can be. So see if you can actually stay with the experience of the breath through the continuity of the inhalation and the exhalation. And again, you'll notice that in order to do this, you have to be open. You can't be too focused. You have to just be allowing, open, and then it just happens. And you'll, as I've described, you'll start to notice everything that's happening. So there are sensations and thoughts and impulses that are occurring. And you don't need to try and control any of that. It's not a problem. You don't have to have good thoughts, and you don't have to have good sensations. You don't have to like it or anything. It's just being aware of it. So you're just noticing it and just keeping your attention primarily with the breath, but sort of peripherally, you notice all of these things that are happening alongside the breath. And what you can notice is that all of these things that are occurring, they're in motion. They don't stay. They're constantly coming and going. So that's the nature of all creation, is that it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So it appears, and then it's apparently here, and then it disappears. Whether you like it or you don't like it, whether it's pleasurable or not pleasurable, whatever it is, it has this basic quality that it appears, it lingers, and then it disappears. So you're just noticing that just by being aware of the breath. So this just happens automatically. And you don't have to have any particular type of experience. It doesn't have to be what you would consider to be a spiritual experience or a nice experience or transcendent experience or anything like that. You're just simply noticing, that's all. Now, in this noticing, what might start to become clear is that you are aware of all of the content that's coming and going. So it's appearing and lingering and disappearing, whatever it is. And it might be very fast, it might be very slow, there might be gaps between, there might be no gaps. But regardless of any of that, you are aware of it. And you might notice that your awareness is continuous. There's no interruption in the awareness. If there was an interruption in the awareness, then I don't know how that would work. It's actually an impossibility. Just constant awareness. Now, the awareness is beyond subtle. It's so subtle. It doesn't even register as anything. It's not. It can't be grasped in any way. So if you try to think about it, then you just tie yourself up in knots. But you can notice that that thinking also is happening in awareness. So no matter what it is that's happening, it's happening in awareness. If you agree with what's being said, then that's happening in awareness. And if you disagree with it, it's happening in awareness. So everything is coming and going except awareness. Awareness is just the constant. And it has no beginning and no end. So the notion of beginning and end actually is another phenomenon that arises in awareness. But awareness is outside of time. So measures of time like beginning, middle, and end don't apply to awareness. Awareness is always here. It's just a given. There's nothing that you can do to get outside of it, because there is no outside of it, because also space is just another phenomenon that occurs within awareness. So this is a very simple, direct inquiry that's always available to you. And when and if it's comfortable for you and you'd like to open the eyes, you're welcome to do that. And just notice that this is also happening in awareness. So nothing has really fundamentally changed. Remember that the idea of closing the eyes was just to dampen down some of the noise, the stimulation that our attention habitually goes to. So you might notice that with the eyes open, there might be more of a particular type of mind activity that takes place, labeling, objectifying in an externalized way. But actually, all of that is still happening in awareness. So again, fundamentally, nothing has really changed. It's just content. So as I said, this is really the foundation, just to have this direct experience. Everything else that can be said is only of value in the context of the direct experience, because otherwise it just becomes more content that is untethered. It's not tied to anything, and so it just becomes more noise, more stimulation, more confusion. But when we have this direct experience, then you start to notice that everything actually is pointing to this. So then whatever is said, if it helps to foster some intellectual understanding, that intellectual understanding is pointing to this direct experience. So that it's starting to turn everything and point it back to the direct experience. For those who are just joining, it will be very valuable to you because we've just included a guided practice of a direct experience. And as I was just saying, this direct experience is the foundation that allows whatever else is said to be of value. So take a moment now and just close the eyes for those who are just joining. For everybody else, you've just opened your eyes, but close the eyes and just take a moment and disregard whatever is said. Just take time for yourself to actually notice that all this content that's happening is happening in awareness. So just notice that. Notice that the sounds are coming and going, the thoughts are coming and going, the sensations are coming and going, the breath is coming and going. All of that comes and goes, and just observe that. Don't try to grasp it or understand it or do anything with it. Just actually take a moment for yourself, a few minutes at least, and just don't listen to anything that's being said for that time, and just notice that awareness in which everything is coming and going. And then if and when you feel ready and good and clear within yourself, then you're welcome to, at your own time, join the talk that's about to be given. So our theme today is that you cannot pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. And this is as I've said, it's one of the phrases that I like to use. And now, if you don't understand what this means, sometimes people don't know this. Maybe it's a very American phrase, I don't know, but it's a phrase that is used in various contexts. And the image is that of boots. And boots often have straps on them for pulling them on. And so you could imagine yourself wearing a pair of boots, and imagine that you're wearing these boots and you bend down and you take hold of the straps on the boots and you try to lift yourself up. Maybe you could just imagine that. And you might notice, hopefully, that you're not very successful in that, because it's impossible to lift yourself up by your own bootstraps. And hopefully that's clear why that is, because you don't have any leverage to do so. You're in the boots. You can't do that. Now, what does this have to do with anything else? And why is this of value? Because I suggested at the beginning that this is of value. And the reason that this is of value is that you might notice in your life that you struggle. And sometimes things seem to be going well, and sometimes things seem to be going poorly. And when things seem to be going well, you can virtually be guaranteed that at some point in the not too distant future, things will seem to be going poorly. And if things are seeming to go poorly, then you can be reassured that in the not too distant future, things will seem to be going well. Now, of course, depending on the personality and various other things, the amount of time might vary, but the nature of this reality is up and down. So, I said at the beginning something about frequency and vibration, and this is because the nature of creation and the nature of the manifest world is all vibration. And that's not just some woo concept. I mean, that's actually just the truth. The sound that's happening is vibration. The light that is the entirety of everything that you see. There's nothing that you see that is not light, right? I mean, all that you can see is light, and that light is all frequency. It's all vibration. Every sensation is a vibration. Every thought is a vibration. Everything that can be experienced is vibration. The entire world, the entire reality is vibration. So the nature of it is that it's vibrating. It's up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. It's constantly in motion. So if you insist that it shouldn't be, then you're going to just get yourself into a lot of difficulty, because that's its nature. But again, back to the point is that things are up sometimes and sometimes they're down. Sometimes we think they're good, sometimes we think they're bad. Sometimes we think things are going well, sometimes we think they're going poorly. Sometimes we think we're progressing, sometimes we think we're regressing. So that's the nature of it. You can't have the up without the down. You can't have the light without the dark. That is how it goes. Now, most of us are hypnotized so that we are in this trance with the frequency that is our present reality, right? So up, down, up, down, up, down. So you might notice that in there's this idea of a set point. Maybe you've heard of a set point. If not, I'm about to describe it to you, which is that you have this basic frequency of your consciousness that you're entrained to, you're entranced by, you're hypnotized by. And if you imagine that this frequency is up and down, there's some point in the middle and that defines that up and down. It's up from that and down from that. And then so that's I don't know what that would be technically speaking, but that's maybe 0 point. But then we've got the peaks and the troughs, so the amplitude, and then the frequency is actually how often so my terminology is a little imprecise here, but it doesn't really matter for this talk. But just have this image of this wave, up and down, up and down, up and down. And in the middle is this line that's sort of the midline. And that's the set point. Now, you don't really tend to move particularly beyond that set point. Again, sometimes you think it's going well, sometimes you think it's going poorly. Sometimes you think it's going well, sometimes you think it's going poorly. So for most people, this was not true for all people. And I'm going to explain today what makes the difference. How you cannot be one of those people who stays at the same set point. But most people will stay at the same set point for an entire lifetime. Not much will change. Because they go up and they say, oh, it's up. And then they go down and they say, oh, no, it's down. And then they go up and they say, oh, good, it's up. And then it goes down and they say, oh, no, it's down. And you might say, well, my experience is generally pretty much down, but that's just because you have a low set point. But they're still up and down. It just might not, your up might not be very up, it's low. But still the same thing is there, up, down, and you say, maybe this is a little better, and then, oh no, it's worse. And then, oh no, it's a little better, and oh no, it's worse. So most people stay stuck at the same set point. And the reason they stay stuck at the same set point is because they're trying to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. And I'll explain what this means. But that's the problem, is people stay stuck at the same set point because they're trying to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. So it does sometimes happen that for some people, there's what we could call an awakening. Now, I'm not talking here about enlightenment. I'm not talking about liberation. I'm just talking about a moment of wakefulness in which there's a realization of the repetitive nature of the set point. This realization, sometimes it's up and sometimes it's down, but then it's just up and then it's down and then it's up and it's down, and nothing really is changing, actually. It's just sort of repetitive. It's like that movie Groundhog Day, except in that movie, if you've seen the movie, things, eventually the lessons are learned. But most people don't learn the lessons until there's that moment of wakefulness in which there's this realization. And this is just the glimpse that offers the possibility of something. Most people who even have that glimpse, they go back to sleep because they have this realization and they say, oh no, this is awful. I'm trapped. So we have this basic reality that most people are asleep. They're stuck at the same set point and they're completely entranced, hypnotized. They're asleep. They have no idea that they're just stuck at this set point. Some people will have this experience maybe once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times, maybe a dozen times in their lifetime, where they'll wake up for a moment and they'll realize nothing really fundamentally is changing, actually. All of my efforts, all of my striving, all of the things I've done, I talk about this sometimes as rearranging the furniture. They've rearranged the furniture of my life so many times, and I thought it was new, but actually nothing new really fundamentally has occurred. Same patterns, same attitudes, same struggles, same everything, basically. Nothing really fundamentally has changed. And so there'll be a moment of realization of, wow, I'm just stuck in this repetitive nature. Now, as I say, most people probably, I'm not sure the exact numbers on this, but probably the majority of people who have those moments of wakefulness, they'll say, oh no, that's terrible, and they go back to sleep. A few will realize, I want something different. And that is, so the moment of wakefulness is a moment of grace. That's not something you can do, because you can't pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. You cannot wake yourself up. The waking up has to happen from a higher level. So that's a moment of grace, this waking up, this realization, wow, I've been asleep. There's just been this repetitive nature happening over and over and over. Then another moment of grace is that if there's this realization, I want something different. Not just I wish for something different, but I have a sense that something different is possible, and I'm going to apply myself. So that's another moment of grace, because the majority don't have that. The majority just go back to sleep. So to have that is also another moment of grace. Something higher intelligence is doing that. Now, even within the people who have that moment of grace, there's still, they struggle and struggle and struggle, because they're still trying to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. And what I mean by that is that now they have some level of wakefulness. They realize that they're stuck in these vicious cycles, these repetitive patterns. They realize that, they see it. They want change, and they're trying to produce that change, but they're trying to produce the change from within that set point. So they're trying to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. So let me give you, now we'll just momentarily switch imagery. Imagine or think about a dream. So imagine that you're dreaming. Imagine that you've gone to bed and you're dreaming. And let's say that the dream is somewhat unpleasant, and you have this momentary realization of wakefulness that, oh, this is an unpleasant thing, and I would like it to change. I would like to do something to bring about this change. But then within the dream, you're trying to produce the change, and you're not going to actually be able to succeed in getting the change that you want, because within the dream, you really actually don't know actually what the change is that you want, because the change that you want is coming to you from outside of the dream. So when you then imagine that now you've woken up from the dream, and what it is that you want is realized in that moment, because what you want is to know who you are. Because whatever's happening to that character in the dream, when you think that you're that character in the dream, you think that that reality of the dream is your reality. You think that that's those are limitations for you, and that you have to figure that out. You have to solve all those problems in order to achieve what it is that you really want. Notice that no amount of achieving in the dream will give you what you want, because what you actually want is realized in the moment of waking up, because you realize in that moment that, oh, I'm not that character in the dream. All of the struggles, all of the worries, all the problems that I believed I had, they actually don't exist for me. That's what you really want. You see, when you wake up, none of the burden of that dream applies to you. Now, of course, it never applied to you, because you were always who you are. You were never the dream character. Whatever happens to you in the dream, it doesn't actually apply to you, right? You've probably noticed that. You get beat up in the dream, you get, black eye, and then you wake up, you don't have a black eye. You win the lottery in the dream, when you wake up, your bank account is the same, because there's no transfer, because it's different levels. So the dream reality does not apply to you. And this is really good news, because again, regardless of whether it's a nice dream or not, the nature of the dream, the nature of all creation is up, down, up, down, up, down. And so when it's up, if you say this is good, then when it's down, you say this is bad. And so then you're hoping for it to be good again. And then when it's good, you hope that it will always be good, but then it's going to go down. And so that attachment is really, that's suffering. So when you're in the dream, you're hypnotized. You see what I'm talking about? You're in a trance in the dream. You believe that you are this dream character and that all of this dream reality is happening to you and it applies to you. And these are your problems that you have to solve. And that's suffering. What you realize what you actually want in the moment of waking up completely from the dream. When you realize, then, oh, it was a dream. None of that applies to me. So now, who is it that wakes up? So in the dream, there's a dream character. You identify as that dream character. And maybe in the dream, there might even be a dream thought, dream narrative that says, I need to wake up. Might even be in the dream, there might even be this thought, this is a dream. I need to wake up. I'm falsely identified with the dream character. I need to wake up. How am I going to do it? And all of this stuff takes place within the dream, trying to wake up. But when you're hypnotized, then you're believing that the dream character needs to wake up. But guess what? Dream character can't wake up. Dream character cannot wake up, right? Because when you wake up, the realization is, I'm not the dream character. There is no dream character at that point. So now, let's come back to this idea of you can't pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. So most people, oh, well, let me say this. So notice we did this guided practice to have this direct experience. So you can notice directly that all of this is happening. The entirety of all of this is happening in awareness. The thoughts are happening in awareness. So they appear in awareness, they disappear in awareness. The sensations appear in awareness and disappear in awareness. All the imagery appears in awareness, disappears in awareness. Everything is appearing and disappearing in awareness. So, and notice again that, as I pointed out, that awareness is the only thing that's continuous. So there's no possibility, you have to, it's valuable to see this, there's no possibility of any of the things they cannot wake up. The things cannot wake up because the things are the hypnosis, the sleep. And they have, remember, they have a beginning, a middle, and an end. The waking up is happening outside of the content, just like the waking up from the dream happens outside of the dream. So who wakes up from the dream? Not the dream character, you do. But when you wake up, you don't say, oh, I, the dream character, have woken up. If you think that, then you're still asleep. You're still hypnotized. That can happen, of course, because anything can happen. There, in a dream, right? Anything can happen. So you could have a dream character who believes that they've woken up. And you could have a dream character who could manifest all kinds of superpowers, right? Because people could be amazed by that. They say, wow, this person must really be awake because look at all the things they can do. But it's still in a dream. So all of the content is the dream. And that cannot wake up because the waking up is happening outside of the dream. So notice the parallel. I hope this is clear to you, that all of the content, when you just give your attention in this very simple way, you'll notice all of the content is coming and going in awareness. So who is actually awake? Just when you ask that question, who is awake? Who is aware? Who is noticing? Notice what answers do you come up with? You might say, well, I am. But who is the I that is aware? And you'll notice there's some idea there. Well, me. Well, who is me? Well, this one. Okay, but who is this one? I am. Okay, but who is this I? Well, the one who's aware. Okay, but who is that? And you just keep seeing there's some idea there of who it is. And those ideas are all appearing in the awareness. So there's nobody who's aware, right? I mean, that's the thing, is there's nobody who's aware, but there is awareness, and you are that. So again, at the level of mind, if you're trying to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, then you'll just tie yourself up in knots because you can't do anything with this. But now here's I guess the point is that so you can have various realizations, you can have various experiences, and they can be truthful to varying degrees in the sense, if they point to the direct experience of self, then it's truthful. But as soon as there's an attempt to do something with it, then again, you're back in this position of trying to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, because you say, aha, now I'm going to do it. Now I'm going to wake up. So the question then is, the question I'll pose to you is, then what is the possibility here of a liberation from this repetitive history, from the hypnosis, from the set point? Because at the level of the mind, this seems like an impossibility, because the mind is trying to the mind is always creating limits, and so it just can't help itself. I mean, that's just the nature of the mind. And so it will create a limit, and then it will believe its own limitation. And so and this is all what's called Maya. It's the illusion, is what keeps you hypnotized at that set point. So all of the limitations that are created in the mind, they're all designed to keep you at that set point in trance. And no matter what you think about that, you might think, oh, that's unfair and that's horrible. And why would God create something like that? And you create all these, but notice all of those are there to keep you at that same set point, the same level of consciousness. And so the possibility is to admit that you cannot do it. And then start to acknowledge that you are not the one who is doing any of this. You are not even the one who's aware of this. And when I say you are not the one who's aware, what I mean is the one who's trying to figure it out is not the one who's aware. The one who wants to get the permanently better life is not the one who's aware. The one who wants to feel better is not the one who's aware. And so there's this tendency of this constant referral back to this set point, this idea of yourself, that it's so insidious that you don't even know it's happening. You can't even see it because you're so hypnotized. Every thought that comes attached to it is this idea of yourself. You think, I'm thinking this is my life. I need it to be better. I'm stuck. I need help. I'm improving my life. I'm failing. I'm succeeding. And it seems so real because of the hypnosis, because of this power of Maya. But there is a remedy, and the remedy is to admit sincerely that you cannot do it, because you, the one who wants to do it, the one who wants to improve, the one who wants to fix it, the one who wants to have the better experience, you are the hypnosis. So every time you touch that, every time you try, and you're trying to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, and where you find yourself, same place, always in the same place. Why? Because you're referring back to the same set point. The one who wants the better life, the one who wants enlightenment, the one who wants to be happy, the one who wants to be successful, the one who wants to get rid of the trauma, the one who's going to get it, the one who's not getting it. No matter good, bad, whatever, it's always referring back to the same set point, the same ego, ahamkara. It's the same, this thing that inserts itself, and you're hypnotized to believe it because it's just so fast. And notice whatever comes up presently. So there's a reaction to all of this. There's a frustration or a hope or anticipation or boredom or whatever it's constantly changing, but whatever the reaction is, just notice that reaction is happening actually in awareness. So there's this idea that you're bored or you're frustrated or you understand or you don't understand or you're getting it or whatever it is. And that's the set point. That's the thing that you keep coming back to, and you're trying desperately to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, and you can't. So just admit that you can't do it. And then there's this moment of grace happens. So there's a series of moments of grace, right? There's the moment of grace that of this realization. It's just all repetitive history. I'm just stuck at the same set point. And then there's a moment of grace of this realization that I really want it to be different. I really sincerely want it to be different. I'm tired of the same old, same old. I'm tired of falling back asleep. So that's a moment of grace. This is another moment of grace that happens if you allow it. You just will see that you can open to this moment of grace of this sincere surrender, just an acknowledgement that I can't do it. I cannot do it. And every time I try, I just get myself stuck again. So it's another image that I often refer to. It's talking about the same thing, is that the story of Brer Rabbit and the tar baby. It's politically incorrect, but it's it's a good story to describe this problem. So Brer Rabbit is wanting to trick Brer Fox, and he makes this thing out of tar that's meant to look like a baby, tar baby, hence the name. He puts it on the path that Fox walks along, and Brer Fox comes along, and Brer hides behind a bush, and then does a little ventriloquist act. And he says, throw in his voice, "Hey, Brer Fox." Brer Fox looks around, and tar baby says, "Oh, hi." And Brer Rabbit again throws his voices, "You're the stupidest creature I ever saw." And now Brer Fox says, "You take that back." And tar baby says, "No, I won't. You're ugly too." So Brer Fox hits the tar baby because he's all upset. And this continues until Brer Fox is totally stuck to the tar baby because tar is sticky. So he can't get himself unstuck. He's just stuck to the tar baby. Every time we try to do it, we get ourselves stuck. Trying to pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps, we get ourselves stuck back to the same set point. Now, again, there's going to be a reaction to this, but see that the reaction is just, it's so familiar, isn't it? Whatever the reaction is, you know this reaction. You've had it a billion times before. It's not new. And see that reaction keeps, if you attach to it, it keeps you stuck to the same set point. Whatever the reaction is, whether it's, oh, I can't, it's I'm doomed to be stuck forever, or it's, I'm going to succeed, I'm going to overcome, or whatever it is, it keeps you stuck to the same set point. But this moment of grace that's available which is this dawning higher intelligence, it reveals a higher truth. It actually changes the set point. It reveals a higher truth, and it shows you that you are not that. You are not the thing that you think you are. You're not the thinker of the thought. You're not the experiencer of the experience. You're not the doer of the action. You've been mistaking yourself for this dream character. But and the dream character cannot wake itself up, because the awakening is the revelation of the non-identification of the dream character. The dream character is not conscious. Dream character cannot be conscious. Dream character is an object of awareness. It's an idea. It's a thought. So that character that you think that you are cannot wake up, because it's not conscious. It cannot. But this higher intelligence can awaken. It is awakening. But in order to allow that, there has to be a surrender of the false. There has to be a willingness not to attach to that. So the Bhagavad Gita, fairly famous scripture, is all about this. And there are 18 sections, and for the first 17, it's a conversation between Arjuna and Krishna. There's a great battle that's about to take place, and Arjuna is a warrior, and it's a battle. It's a battle between, what do you call this? It's like a civil war, but it's the same one family. It's this feud in this one family, and so he sees that he's about to go to war with his uncles and his grandfather and his cousins and his preceptors and all of his family. He's about to go to war with them, and I can't do this, Krishna. This is wrong. And so Krishna is telling Arjuna about how it is, because Krishna, who's this supreme being, is explaining. He's explaining to Arjuna. He says, "Look, you might think that you have a choice here, but you don't. This is going to happen. Why? Because this is my will. This is already done. It's already, he even says, I've already killed them. It's already done." And he says, the only thing is, if you do it in the right way, which I'll explain in a moment, if you do it in the right way, then this is a an expression of grace. This is a truthful thing. This is a an awakening. But if you think, I won't do it, you'll still do it, he says, but then you'll be asleep. So 17 sections of this Bhagavad Gita in which this is going on, and Arjuna asks lots of questions about everything. What's the nature of reality, and who are you, and who am I, and how does it all work? How is reality structured? And all this stuff. And finally, in the 18th and final section, kind of comes down to brass tacks. It's like, okay, because Krishna has finally revealed his cosmic form to Arjuna, which kind of, finally Arjuna gets it. Up to that point, Arjuna is still having his doubts. And finally, this revelation of Krishna's cosmic form and which is, infinite being. I mean, it's unfathomable. And finally, Arjuna is like, oh, okay. So this is why, I say that the importance of the direct experience, because that is the revelation. If you allow it, it's the revelation of the cosmic form. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna's form is, showing he has all of these mouths, and things are coming in and out of his mouths, universes are coming in and out of his mouths. But you see, this is pointing to the same direct experience. Everything, entire universes are created and destroyed every instant. This is what's happening. You notice in the direct experience, that's what's actually happening. This appears, disappears, appears, disappears, appears, disappears. So after this revelation, and that's why I said, the direct experience is so important, because up to that point, there's just all these questions. Oh, but what about this? And what about that? And it's all theoretical. Once there's this direct experience, then there's finally this kind of humility, this realization, oh, gosh, all of these doubts and questions, they're leading nowhere. They're all part of the hypnosis, just leading back to the same set point over and over and over. Finally, with this direct experience, there's this humility to realize this is beyond my mind. This is beyond my identity. This is beyond any concept. This is beyond my ability to grasp it. It's beyond me. Then what happens? Arjuna says, okay, Krishna, I get it. So I'm going to go kill all these people. But I'm not killing anybody because you are the doer. You have done it already. I'm merely your dream. What is the right way for me to do this? Because I'm still having this sense that I'm doing it. What is the right way for me to do it? What can I do that's not going to have me trying to pull myself up by my own bootstraps or take another swing at the tar baby? What is the possibility here, Krishna? And Krishna says, I'm glad you asked. He says, recognize just that you are not the doer. So just surrender everything to me. When you eat, you are eating for me. When you walk, you are walking for me. When you talk, you are talking for me. Whatever action is taken, it is taken by me, for me. Just surrender it to me. Don't delude yourself into believing that any of this is yours or for you. So that is the remedy straight from the mouth of Krishna. I mean, interpreted a bit by me, but this is a very high level teaching, I suppose, in some sense. It's also very low level, not in the sense of being inferior, but in the sense of fundamental. It's the most fundamental thing, because when you get to a point of maturation where there's this realization, like I said, of I'm just continuing to struggle with the same things. And then there's this desire to actually have a change. And then by grace, because it's happening, I mean, so you don't have to wait for it. It's happening right now. I mean, you're here tuning into this. So this is the moment. It's happening. Don't put it off for later thinking I'll look for it. I'll wait for it to happen. No, it's happening now. This moment of grace is happening. That's awakening this realization of this possibility that finally you can be free of that repetitive pattern, of the set point, of the endless struggle to lift yourself up by your own bootstraps. And you can acknowledge that you cannot do it. Every time you try to do it, you just bind yourself to the same set point again. Try as you might, no matter how clever you try to get with it, it's built into it because you're trying to do it. As soon as you try to do it, you're bound to the set point again. So this moment of grace is happening. There's this dawning realization that there is another possibility, which is to admit that you cannot do it, and let that stop you in all of your scheming. Just see how you're so desperately trying to do something to fix it, to help yourself, to get right, and that every time you do, there you are taking another swing at the tar baby, and sure enough, you get stuck again. But the possibility is acknowledge that, just see that, acknowledge that every time you try, you get stuck. And so stop and stop taking the actions and just surrender all of it to this higher intelligence, which is this same awareness. But notice this awareness, I call it awareness. I call it many things. We can call it Krishna. We can call it God. We can call it whatever. But notice if whatever word we use, there's a certain kind of baggage that comes along with that, because then we have an idea of what it is. And so to call it awareness maybe gives it this kind of such neutrality, as if like it's completely not involved, which is in some ways true, but not true at the same time, because look, this is happening. So the reality is that this creation is occurring. This experience is occurring. So this awareness, if we want to call it that, is this intelligence. It's yes, it's static in the sense, or it's not in motion. It's not involved, completely neutral in that sense. But this is the part where, because our minds want to make it either or, wants to say, well, it's that, and so it can't be this other thing. It's also the dynamism of this creation. So it is the intelligence, while it is simultaneously an absence of anything, it is also the intelligence, which is this creation. And so when you admit, as I'm inviting you to do, that you cannot do it, the invitation, the possibility is to surrender to this higher intelligence, which is, yes, the same as awareness. And at the same time, it's not your idea of awareness. It's completely inclusive of everything and beyond. So you have to be willing to surrender all of your ideas of what it is, and just follow the instruction just as is given. So Krishna gives this instruction, and if you have a difficulty because it's Krishna, substitute whatever deity or teacher that works for you, because they all are fundamentally saying the same thing. Jesus says the same thing. He says, "What? I won't get the quote right, but it's like, I am the way, right? I am the way." So it's like, you're trying to do it on your own. You're trying to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, but Jesus is saying, "I'm the way." Just same message, same, just surrender to me, as this higher intelligence. So whatever you mental gymnastics you have to do to connect with it, that's fine and good, but see that the invitation is being extended through every possible means. That's like, again, if Krishna doesn't work for you, then there's Jesus, and if Jesus doesn't work for you, then there's whoever. I mean, there's so many possibilities, but they're all saying the same thing, and they're saying, stop trying to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Just surrender everything to this higher intelligence. Acknowledge that you can't do it. Acknowledge that you're not doing it. Acknowledge that you didn't create yourself. Because, see, your idea of yourself is it exists in the domain of creation, but you, as that creation, could not have created yourself. So as long as you're perceiving yourself to be that, then receive this grace which is coming to you, which is giving you the instruction. And it just says, surrender everything to this higher intelligence, which is the doer. And that means just every thought, surrender it. Every action, surrender it. Every judgment, surrender it. Every doubt, surrender it. Every fear, surrender it. Just make it an offering to this higher intelligence. And then this, you see, then there's a reason why it's the 18th of the 18th of the 18 sections. That's the only instruction that's really needed if it's received, because it completely takes care of itself. And you'll see the beauty of it. It's constantly, it lifts you. You cannot do it yourself, but it lifts you. And you say, but I'm stuck. Surrender that. And it lifts you. And you say, oh, but I really want. And you say, surrender that. And it lifts you. But I have to. Surrender that. And it lifts you. I'm failing. Surrender that. And it lifts you. Whatever it is that's arising, just surrender that. And it lifts you. You can't do it yourself. I hope that that's clear. And as I said, this is it's a very high level teaching and very fundamental teaching. So it's not the only truthful, valuable teaching. So do take hold of it to the best of your ability. But if you find sometimes that you forget or you can't, that's okay. It's not, then you take hold of some other teaching that's aligned with this. It's because they all work together, but this is the most valuable if you can just do it. And I'll just say one more thing about it, which is that if you want a very practical thing that you can do that will allow you to do this without having to think about it, just remain aware of your breath. See how powerful it is. If you just continue to be aware of your breath, you'll see that it's doing exactly what I've just been describing. You'll see all of these things come up. Oh, but what about this? Oh, but what about that? Oh, but I should this, and oh, I should that, and oh, I have to this, and I can't, and I can, and I will, and I won't, and I need, and just keep being aware of the breath, and you'll see everything is surrendered to this higher intelligence, because this higher intelligence is the it is the doer of the breath. So you just stay with the breath, and everything you're lifted every time. I promise you it's true. It will save you so much difficulty and hardship. It will bless you in your life. So if you can manage it, do so. And then let me know what your experience is, because I appreciate hearing that. But I'm confident that you'll find that it's exactly what I've described. It will just keep lifting you. Every time you're trying to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, just surrender it. Just be aware of the breath. Just let go, and you'll see this higher intelligence just lifts you. It takes care of it. It takes care of all the things if you let it. That's it from me today. For those who are here live, I'm happy to stay on for Q&A. Let me end this recording.